If you want to build that fit, toned, sexy feminine body, at one point or another, you are going to have to do a calorie deficit. You're going to have to do a dedicated fat loss phase. The problem is most women get this phase totally wrong. They either drop their calories way too hard, too quickly, they're too restrictive with their diets, never having any kind of cheat meal whatsoever, doing tons of cardio, and essentially this just makes them get totally burnt out and frustrated that they're not seeing that much progress, or even if they do lose some weight, guess what? They end up gaining it all back really quickly. So in today's video, I'm going to show you how to fix these mistakes, how to actually have a sustainable, realistic fat loss phase that is not that difficult to adhere to, and best of all, that's going to help you lose anywhere from 20 to 40 pounds of fat in one single cutting phase and keep it off for good. So I'm going to be going over how to know when your body is ready for a deficit, how to actually start your deficit, and when and how to make adjustments to continue seeing progress, just like I did with my clients here who lost anywhere from 20 to 25 pounds doing a calorie deficit with me. So I'm going to break down exactly how you can do this too. So let's get into it. Okay, the very first step of doing a successful cut, which is the slang for a fat loss phase, being in a calorie deficit, is actually evaluating whether or not you're in a good position to be in one. So this video that I'm recording right now is an extension from my last video, which was kind of part one of this series, because I don't think that anyone should do a calorie deficit phase until they have done at least some amount of prepping their body with a reverse diet. So if going into a calorie deficit means taking food out of your diet, burning more calories than the amount that you are consuming, a reverse diet is kind of the opposite. A reverse diet is where you are gradually increasing the amount of food that you eat. So why would you even want to do a reverse diet, and why would you be doing this before you go into a cut? The reason why is because in order to have a successful fat loss phase, you absolutely need to have runway to drop your calories. A lot of the time in one single deficit, which is usually going to last somewhere between 4 to 6 months, but it can go even longer than that, you're going to need around at least 500 calories to drop from your deficit, and it could be up to as much as 1,000 calories. So if you're thinking that you want to cut body fat and right now you're only eating like 1,600 calories a day, that doesn't give you very much room at all to drop your calories. The other reason to do a reverse diet first before going into a cut is because you're going to be able to already see changes in your body that you really like just in the reverse diet itself. Just by getting a consistent macro intake, eating good quality food, doing good quality training in the gym, and staying consistent with tracking your data and making adjustments based on how your body's progressing, which I'm going to share how to do in this video, you're already going to start to see fat come off and muscle come on. I've done this with so many clients where actually they never even had to get to a fat loss phase in order to see themselves leaning out and toning up significantly. So if you want to take fat off and put muscle on, wouldn't you rather achieve as much of that as you can first with a reverse diet before going into the final stages of fat loss in your cut? Now, here's the thing, achieving both fat loss and muscle gain at the same time, this is called body recomposition, or I tend to just call it recomp for short. This is a really amazing thing that a lot of people who are kind of newer on their fitness journey can see a lot of success with, but the problem is this will plateau eventually. You can't just keep gaining muscle and losing fat at the same time to an extreme degree. Eventually, you are going to have to decide to go fully into a calorie deficit in order to lose a significant amount of fat. And if you're somebody who's a little bit on the skinnier side right now, probably that amount is going to be somewhere between 10 to 20, maybe up to 25 pounds. And if you're a little bit more overweight right now, I'd say you're looking at more that 20 to 40 pound range in one single deficit phase. Okay, so if you want to learn how to do the reverse diet prior to your calorie deficit to already start to see really amazing progress in your physique and to be effectively prepared for a fat loss phase, then go watch the last video I just made, because that's where I break it all down. Okay, so now we're assuming that you have done your reverse diet for anywhere from 1 to 3 months. Potentially it could be longer. You don't really need to stop your reverse diet at any given point so long as you are continuing to see good results and you're happy with your progress. Generally, the clients I work with are going to reverse diet for about 2 to 3 months before we move into their calorie deficit, and that's because we're usually going to need that amount of time to, one, get their calorie intake to a good enough starting point, which I I always say should be around at least 2,000 calories a day, because 2,000 calories a day as a woman is going to give you that room to drop your calories, right? Because if we're going to drop somewhere around at least 500, then you'd only be finishing your deficit at 1,500, and potentially you might go even a little lower than that. Now, there are some exceptions to this, and I talked about that in my last video, where if you're maybe a very petite woman, or if you're a bit older, if you're sedentary, if you don't have very much muscle right now, then maybe you could start your deficit at 1,800. That's really the absolute lowest I would ever take anyone. But honestly, I rarely see that a woman needs to do that. Even my very short clients who are literally like 4'11" or 5 feet tall, I'm usually able to get to at least 2,000 calories, if not into the low 2,000s. Okay, so you want to have your intake around that 2,000 calories a day minimum before going to the cut. The other reason to know that you're ready for a cut and to not just continue reverse dieting is because you do just still have quite a bit of fat that you're feeling uncomfortable with, that you want to take off. And although you probably lost some in the reverse diet, you want to really hone in and lose the majority of that fat right now. The other reason could be that you're just really kind of maxing out your hunger cues. You're not really feeling full. You're starting to feel maybe like a little heavy, a little bit bloated. That's kind of when you know as well, like, okay, you've pushed the amount of food that you can eat, and now it is fine for you to move towards that calorie deficit. Okay, so the question is, how do you now start your deficit? How do you go from being in a reverse diet to now moving into the cut? Well, of course, you are going to have set macros that in a reverse diet, you are aiming to hit 5 days out of the week perfectly within 5 grams plus or minus, meaning you have the other days to have some free meals or cheat meals as they're more commonly called. But now that you're going into your calorie deficit, you want to really tighten this up, because the name of the game is to try to lose as much fat as quickly as possible so that you can kind of get in and out of your deficit. That's kind of the way I want you to see a fat loss phase, is that you're trying to be here, not forever, because really ideally your body actually doesn't really like being in a deficit. It's better for us to be eating at maintenance, or to be increasing our maintenance level and really focusing on gaining muscle and eating more food. But some of the time we do have to go into that deficit to lose more fat. So that's why we want to be as efficient and as effective as possible. So now that you're in your calorie deficit, you're going to be aiming to hit macros 6 days out of the week and just having that one free meal or cheat meal per week. Okay, so with the macros that you had set from your reverse diet, what you're going to do is you're going to drop about 15% from your intake. So let's say you're finishing your reverse diet. Honestly, for me, I'd say anywhere between 1,800 to 2,300 calories a day. I'd probably drop that client about 200 to 300 calories. And if this client had gotten up to 2,400 calories a day or higher, that's where I would think more like a 400 to 600 calorie deficit. Again, this is why it's so good to reverse diet before you cut, so you have the room to drop from your intake without having to go so low, but technically still being in a deficit. Okay, so let me illustrate this with 2 clients that I personally worked with to help lose anywhere from 20 to 25 pounds. So this is my client Karen, who lost 20 pounds doing a reverse diet and then going into a calorie deficit with me. And now she's in her post-cut reverse diet, meaning that we finished her deficit. She lost the 20 pounds. She looks absolutely amazing. And now we are working on bringing her food back up bit by bit so that she can actually maintain the fat loss she had in her deficit as we are bringing food back up. And this is exactly what's happening. If you look at her scale trend, you can see that she's even actually hitting a few new lows right now, even though we've increased food. And that's just because as you bring the food back in, your metabolism is going to start picking up again. But overall, you're going to have that maintenance happening. So you're going to actually stay relatively the same weight as when you finished your cut, even though you're now eating more. So what we do with Karen, she's only 4'11". She's the shortest client I have worked with to date. And I was still able to have her at over 2,000 calories a day before we started her cut. Now, the thing was, she came to me already definitely feeling quite puffy, feeling pretty uncomfortable in her body. And we found out she was having around, kind of 2,000, 2,100 calories a day. So she definitely actually was in a good position to kind of immediately go into a deficit, but I don't ever like to put anyone straight into a deficit, because again, you can still see a good amount of progress happen just within even a 1-month reverse diet. And the other thing is, this is just going to get you mentally prepared for what the deficit is going to be, because you need to get consistent with macros, consistent with training, even in your reverse diet. And it's kind of like you got to see it as you have to earn the right to cut, because here's the thing, if you can't be consistent already with a training plan and with a nutrition plan, when you have more flexibility in your reverse diet, then why would you be consistent in a deficit? And the thing is, if you're not consistent in a deficit, you're just really not going to make any progress. You really, really have to make sure you are adhering to your protocols. Okay, so after getting consistent with her macros, getting consistent with lifting in the gym for about 1 month, that is when we went into the calorie deficit. And for her, since she was at about 2,100 calories a day, the first drop I did was just down to 1,800. So about a 300 calorie drop. And that was all we had to do because she actually was already somebody who was running just as part of her lifestyle. So I didn't add in any additional cardio. The only thing that we did was 3 days of lifting in the gym where she would send me exercise form videos so we could make sure that we were also building muscle and speeding that metabolism underneath the body fat. And that's why as we went through her deficit and she ended up losing 20 pounds by the end, now she looks so lean and so toned as well because we also put that muscle on. We didn't just focus on weight loss. Okay, so that's an example of a client who didn't have to reverse diet very long and then also didn't have to make very many changes in her calorie deficit. We only ever had to do another 2 drops in her calorie deficit after that first drop down. So the lowest she ever had to go was 1,700. And in that time, over the course of about 4 months, she was able to lose these 20 pounds, no problem. Now, for another example, this is my client Steph, who lost 25 pounds in 1 calorie deficit with me. So Steph is a little bit more of a typical client case in the sense that we spent about 2 months doing a reverse diet first. And that's just because even though she was pretty overweight and feeling really uncomfortable when she first came to me, she was still only eating about 1,600 calories a day because she'd been so used to trying to do really restrictive diets and really crazy cardio classes as a way to lose weight, except that, of course, it wasn't working. So we had to spend a couple of months getting her intake up, going from 1,600 calories a day up to about 2,150. And in that period of time, she lost maybe only about 2 pounds. So it's not like she saw a huge amount of change happen in the reverse diet, but we were seeing that she was already starting to lean out. So even though the scale wasn't changing that much, she was looking better in her pictures. And again, this is what I mean, that you can already start to see the progress in a reverse diet, even though you're increasing food. So you might as well do that before you rush trying to slash your calories when your calorie intake right now is not that high. So then after the 2 months of the reverse diet, that is when we went into a cut. And for her, we spent about 6 months being in a calorie deficit. And in that time, she was able to lose 25 pounds and literally look like an entirely new person. Now, she was also a bit more of a typical client in the sense that we had to go through several different calorie adjustments in her calorie deficit. So my client Karen only had to have a few because she just kept seeing the scale drop. And so long as you're seeing the scale drop in your deficit, you don't need to keep making adjustments. But with my client Steph, we had to make about 10 adjustments to her macros over the course of the 6 months in order for her to lose the 25 pounds. And by the end of her deficit, she was down to about 1,500, maybe just a tiny bit less than that. Like at the very, very end, we got down to about 1,470 before we started to reverse diet out of the cut again so that she could maintain the results that she achieved eating more food. And that's exactly what happened. Okay, so now that you've seen a couple of examples of how amazing this process works and the kind of results you can expect, let's talk more about how you know when and how to be changing your protocols, the amount you're eating, and your workouts and your deficit. So after you do your initial drop, the other things you want to look at outside of creating a deficit via food is how you can also help have a deficit via your movement. So really, you can either add in cardio or you can have a step goal, and you're going to add this on to the lifting that you're doing in the gym. These days, I'm actually becoming a bigger fan of having steps over actual assigned cardio, but traditionally, I have always given people 30-minute sessions on the Stairmaster. Usually when they're starting their cut, I would give them 2 sessions per week, and then as we're progressing, I usually will add in a 3rd, and towards the end, there might be a 4th. But I think to start off your deficit, honestly, just having that calorie drop initially from your carbs and your fats, not your protein, you're only cutting from carbs and fats, and then adding in a higher step goal, honestly, that is going to be enough, especially if your steps aren't that high right now. Like let's say you only get 5,000 steps a day right now. If you jump up to 10,000 steps a day, that's already going to make a really big difference for you. So that's kind of the key thing, is it has to be more than what you're doing right now. Because if you're somebody who already gets 10,000 steps a day, then maybe you'd want to jump up closer to like 15,000 steps a day, but you'd also have to kind of check with with yourself to see if you can fit that all in. So this is where you got to decide, are you going to add in a step goal or are you going to add in some actual steady state cardio sessions? This is something for you to decide and to kind of play with and see how your body adapts to it during your deficit. Okay, so let's talk about how to know when to make adjustments. So here's the thing, so long as you are consistently losing weight, so long as you are seeing an overall downward scale trend happening throughout your deficit, there is no reason that you have to change your protocols. So again, that was like with my client Karen, we hardly had to change anything throughout the 4 months. We only had to make 3 macro adjustments, and that's because she just kept losing weight. Everything kept working. The only time that we would make an adjustment is we would start to see, okay, the scale's plateauing a bit. We're not really seeing a new low coming in over a couple of weeks. So what do? We decrease food a little bit, or of course, your other option is to also increase cardio, add in more steps, add in another Stairmaster session, whatever you want it to be, or it can be a combination of both. Maybe add in some more steps or some more cardio, and also do a decrease to your food. So this is where tracking data is so important, because you can't know that your protocols are working the way they should be if you don't actually have any data to look at. So what I make my clients do is every single week they take progress photos in good lighting in something quite skimpy so we can clearly see their body from the front, side, and back. And then they also weigh themselves every single day and we track it in an actual graph, okay? Because you want to see the trend that is happening over time. You don't want to just see kind of written numbers, because you can expect in a calorie deficit, what might happen is you're going to hit a new low and then you're going to jump right back up, maybe a pound or 2 the next day. I know it's really frustrating, but that's just how the body works. We fluctuate day to day. We fluctuate for all kinds of reasons. It doesn't mean that you're not losing fat. So you have to kind of embrace that fact. So that's why what you're looking for is the overall downward trend. So long as you've seen a new scale low in the last 2 to 3 weeks, then you are totally fine. Keep going. Your protocols are working. There's no reason for you to change them. But if it has been 2 to 3 weeks of you being completely perfect with adhering to your protocols and you haven't seen that change, that's when you know it's time to start changing your protocols. Now, other things I want to address that you should also be taking into consideration outside of just food and activity in your deficit to help you to see more progress is also drinking water. This again is something that recently I have really realized the importance of. I mean, I always drank water, but now I'm really making sure to have at least 3.5 liters or 120 ounces every single day. And I'm also giving this to my clients. And honestly, you guys, it makes such a difference, because a lot of the time the kind of puffiness or the bloating or whatever it is that we think is fat loss because it's kind of making us look puffy and bigger, a lot of the time that is actually just inflammation or water retention. And one of the reasons that's happening is you're not actually hydrated enough, so your body is holding on to water, which is making you look a little bit softer and puffier. So definitely make sure to also really be drinking water. Another important aspect to pay attention to with your nutrition is your fiber intake, which again is something that more recently I have really gotten into. And same thing here. A lot of the time that kind of puffiness or jiggle can just be your body is kind of inflamed because it's not able to detox properly. And if you're not eating enough nutrients, if you're not having enough fiber, you're not giving your body the ability to be able to break down and digest and essentially get the toxins out of the body. So you want to be having at least 25 to 30 grams of fiber per day. You can look at this in MyFitnessPal. Next to the tab that says macros, you can see the nutrients, and that's where you're going to see what your fiber intake is. And I can guarantee you, when you get a higher fiber intake, you get more water in, you have a good step count, and of course, you're also getting good quality sleep, you're managing your stress, you're outside more, you're getting more sunlight. All of those things are going to help really change your body composition, help make you look and feel so much better because you're just genuinely healthy. Okay, last thing I want to talk about to do in a cut is what do you do if, let's say, you're just like really burning out in your deficit, which definitely can happen because after a couple of months of maybe eating slightly boring food or just feeling kind of hungry again and again and again, and it starts to really add up, you can start to hit a point where you are feeling extremely hungry, you are feeling really exhausted, really mentally fatigued, low energy, you're feeling maybe quite sore from your workouts, you're not able to really recover. this is when you need to bring in a diet break. So this is where you take 1 to 2 weeks and you actually increase the amount of food and you go easy on the cardio because your body's telling you that it is pretty burnt out, it is not happy, and that's why you're getting really low energy and you're getting super, super hungry because your body's just kind of had enough of it. So what this means is your glycogen stores, which is the energy stores that we get from carbohydrates, are depleted. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna add in 200 to 300 calories primarily from carbs, almost exclusively from carbs. You're just gonna add in a little bit of fat as well, but it's mainly going to be that you're giving your body all these carbs to work with, because what that's doing is it's going to replenish your glycogen stores, which is gonna make you feel way better. It's gonna stop the hunger. It's gonna give you the energy again to recover from your workouts, to do better in the gym itself. And honestly, a lot of the time, this can just give you kind of the jolt you need to keep going with your deficit. And usually with my clients, when they do a diet break, they actually start losing more weight again. And with both of these clients that I shared in today's video, Karen and Steph, both of them hit a point in their deficit where they needed to do a diet break, where they just got feeling too hungry, feeling a bit too tired. So I just bumped them up a couple hundred calories towards carbs, and boom, the scale started moving again. And then also what you might find is if you do that increase, you maybe don't have to drop back down as low in your calories because it actually is gonna speed up your metabolism again. It's kind of like a little tiny mini reverse diet within your deficit. Okay, so essentially how to know when to wrap up your cut is a couple different things. Either number one, it's been around kind of that 6-month mark. That's usually when I would say, okay, we've hit the limit. We really don't need to be cutting anymore. The only exceptions to this that I have done with some clients, I've taken some clients into like an 8 or 9 month deficit, is just if they're still feeling really good, like they're not hitting that burnout point, they still feel energized, they're not starving, and they're just continuing to drop weight, then we can go a little bit longer because they have more weight to lose. But most people are going to need to kind of end their deficit at that like 5 to 6 month mark. And usually by that point, you'll have lost whatever your goal is. If you're on the skinnier side, it's going to be closer to 15 pounds. If you have more fat to lose, it's going to be more like that 20 to 25 pounds or even higher. I'd say my typical client though is usually going to be that kind of 20-ish pounds down in one of these phases of reverse dieting and then cutting. So if you're getting to that point where you're just feeling burnt out, exhausted, super hungry, and it's already been several months, 5-6 months, that's kind of when it's time to stop your cut. Or the other option is just that you're really happy with your results. You're feeling really lean and you're just kind of good to call it quits and it's been several months. That's also when you can wrap up the cut and start increasing your food back up with a reverse diet once again, so you can maintain what you achieved in your cut at a higher calorie intake. All right, fam, so that is how you do it. This is how you lose fat, tone up, and stay this way for good, is utilizing these mechanisms of reverse dieting and cutting, and then reverse dieting once again. So I know that this is a lot of information. It's pretty overwhelming to figure out. So if you don't want to have to do this on your own, if you don't want to have to kind of guess and wonder if you're doing things right, if you're unsure, how to read the data, when to make the right decisions, you just want to be guided through this. You want all of it taken off of your plate. You just want to be told exactly what to do, be given constant feedback, as well as accountability, encouragement, reassurance, then that's exactly what we offer inside of our one-to-one fitness coaching program. This is not just a basic generic program where you're given some random plan. This is a very high-level one-to-one program where you get full access to me or a team member, depending on who you choose to work with. And we are with you every step of the way. You can message anytime, get very quick responses to your questions, have a fully customized nutrition training plan with ongoing feedback of what to be doing in the gym, what to be doing with your food, so that you're going to see really dramatic, life-changing progress like what my clients have been able to achieve here. So if you're interested, click on the link in the description, fill out an application. I'd love to chat with you and see if you'd be a good fit to finally achieve your dream results once and for all. All right, fam, thank you so much for checking out this video. Now next, I want you to go watch this one here, which is the one I had just posted, where I go more into detail about the first half of this equation, which is the reverse diet process, what you need to do before your cut. So I will see you in that video.